as we're chatting before the show here, and you said last time we talked about autoimmune, and that was fun. And so when I bring up musculoskeletal stuff, you grimace because here, let me read them real quick. There's a few of them. Kent Burr, he says, I want to get my knees back. It's lame being lame. Kristy Spring, I want a brand new knee. I need a total knee replacement. Susie Bradley, healed bulging L4 disc, intermittent, but would love to have it gone. Evan Herman, recovery from, well, this is not musculoskeletal, but from current tonsillectomy. So that's recovery from a surgery or something like that. But I was thinking about just that, one, recovery. But if you're grimacing at musculoskeletal issues, why?
Well, so I smiled at the autoimmune piece and the, I don't want to say elegance, but the mystery, the interplay of the immune system and the molecules in the body, and how your body is living in tolerance to the world around you all
Mm-hmm.
the time, every day, even when you're not thinking about it. And then when you talk about musculoskeletal, you become more mechanical. Now, when I'm talking to people about it, and one of the things I would highlight today is that musculoskeletal is as much metabolic and molecular as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And when these people are talking about get their knees back and heal, that is a metabolic action. That is molecules in the body that is not dependent upon your chiropractor. And yet, in the musculoskeletal section, if we think of sort of the functional medicine 7 nodes, if you will, of how the body is intersecting, the musculoskeletal one is the place where we've got an entire field of 4 separate medical industries, if you will. So the normal MD Western medical approach, that's going to be highly surgical and medicinal and cover up pain. The osteopathic approach, that's, in partnership with that, but branching into the chiropractic uh, side of things, and a whole nother set of doctors there and their philosophy that goes all the way over into physical therapy. And now most of them are trained at the doctorate level and able to diagnose and treat and do whatever. And 4 whole separate regimes, if you will, to address the complex mechanical side of how we get ourselves hurt. And if you look at the top 10, complaints, I mean, back pain, knee pain, some odd kind of chronic pain is always way up there.
Well,
And
and is it any different? Because I'm thinking about, I tend to think about injury. And so, if I had, I mean, my gosh, the amount of, I mean, we both had just athletic injuries, whether it's skiing or, for me, cycling, or for somebody listening, it's football or whatever. And you have a trauma. I mean, it happened right there. When it happened, and boom, you blew out the ACL, you hurt the
yeah,
knee or
yeah,
whatever, or a long time of that. And, it came from those, you're a rugby player, man, everything's going to be broken and shattered and whatever. Now, then you also have then the growing number of people who have issues, aches and pains and knees and hips and whatever, not from an athletic
right.
aspect, but from a sedentary, well, obesity, of course, stresses a lot of people having musculoskeletal issues just from carrying weight and not having muscle tone. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Um,
The sedentary is also stress, not the stress of not exercising.
Atrophy,
Uh, uh, yeah, I mean, there's atrophy, but the literal stress of not moving
which is
when the machine is built for movement.
weird because it reminds me of, I mean, we have, my old Jeep, and the worst thing that's ever happened to it is it has sat
It's set right,
for a
right.
year.
I
Yeah.
was going to bring up airplanes. Think of international flights; they never stop. Right? They're always crossing a date line. They
Yeah.
land, they get tuned up, refueled, reloaded, whatever else, and they go. An airplane will have a much longer life the less it sits around.
Yeah.
And they also, when the airplane is doing, they have their scheduled maintenance, replace this, replace that, replace this, replace it. It's designed to never stop.
It is weird. I
It,
mean, because from a mechanical thing, it makes no sense to me that you think it would take a car And
You
if you
think
don't,
it,
you
you
leave it
would not drive it.
leave it in
Because-
the garage, it's pristine. It's not been moved for 20 years. Dude, that thing's not going to start, even if it's off the
Right.
showroom floor, because it's made to be lubricated and to be pressurized and be whatever. And to come over here in our bodies and to realize they're that mechanical that I didn't think about it that way.
I did it last night. I am thinking about my own life, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are always so busy.
Yeah.
And I just generally don't get home and say and exercise. And last night was Ryder's birthday, so we had a birthday night, and we cheesecake. And I was sort of squatting as we're getting dinner ready, and I thought, gosh, I haven't moved that muscle all day, and it felt so good to sort of stretch and move. And I thought, did I just take a step backwards by a whole 24, 48-hour period of, we watched the football games on Sunday, and then Monday, and it's going to roll into Tuesday, and you just start thinking, what did that do to my body? And I don't encourage people to actually think that way, because then there's always a guilt response, and always it tends to have a bad mindset. But on the flip side, maybe you need to think that way to get things going. And what does that mean for everybody? And so musculoskeletal, one of the big problems is the sedentariness of our lives, and just the fact that the reality is we're at computers, we entertain ourselves with a screen, and it's just a common thing, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah. It makes me think that we'd all be best, me as well, even with the stuff that I do, to do like the burpees. I mean, it is if we're doing the burpees 10 a day, 5 a day, 25 a day, 50, whatever your stick is, but let's just say 10, 10 burpees a day.
More than none.
And that every day you're doing the squats, you're doing a push-up, you're doing a jump, it's just such an all-encompassing thing. And yeah, I feel better overall when I am more active overall. Otherwise, then you go out for the run. Oh man, I haven't stretched those, or a bike or a swim or whatever. Okay. So that's on the sedentary side. Now on the other side then are the people who are active, who then have.
And let's leave off trauma.
Okay.
Like you tend to think in terms of trauma, sports. And I would say that that's a subset of most people who are out there. And even if you said, well, I was fine until that one trauma when I was 20 or 30 or 40, and that might be a sports trauma, but it's most often a trauma, car wreck. I slipped and fell. I was skiing, and I landed on my hip, and it never got quite right. And I was always imbalanced. And for my wife, one of the pregnancies and the hip weirdness and all that, and never got quite right. She took an elbow in high school basketball, and the jaw was never quite right. Those, I think, go into this next category of the chronic repetitive situation and the metabolic recovery. And that's where, these guys with their L4, C1, C2 instability, and L whatever and T whatever of bulging discs, and even Terry and thinking about that bulging disc, and that's in the over here in the world of chronic repetitive issues. And that was even with Terry. If we think through her lens, it was so frustrating to not just immediately have an MRI and to know exactly, well, the bulge is 1 millimeter.
And you're saying Terry, that's my wife,
Sorry.
who had 2 car wrecks in the span of 3 years. She was hit, rear-ended, hit 4 times or something like that on a snowy road. She came over the side, and then boom, 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 cars hit her. And then the other one, a guy just broadsided her. So 2 neck injuries. So she's been, rehabbing and working out. And lately she's been doing, her Zumba class and all that stuff 4 or 5 times a week. And then last week, then she thinks it was carrying a baby around, grandson around a little bit, and then doing a lot of upper body stuff. We had girls home who were doing their different workout classes.
Was she rowing more?
No, but she was doing a lot of over the head and like stress from the upper back stuff with their workouts and everything, and just whacked it. And now she's got,
the response.
Yeah. So she's has been near incapacitated.
And I think that's a slightly different one than chronic knee pain. I wake up with stiff knees, stiff neck, stiff shoulders every morning.
But to some degree, you're talking about, so however it happened, though, you're talking about a trauma. If you have a musculoskeletal thing, is it fair to say, it's inflamed, it's, what's the word? Well, yeah, it's in,
inflammatory response. It
yeah,
is inflamed so if you speak that way, then we have to say every single thing ever on your musculoskeletal side is from a trauma,
sure.
right? Because unless you're purely laying in bed somewhere, I mean, nobody gets hurt. Well, I just said the trauma of sedentariness generally gets shown when you go for a walk or do the next non-sedentary thing. Pick up a baby, pick up a bag of groceries, do the normal things of life, and then there's that tweak. Um, and then, and I would put myself in the category of when I hit the 40s and bending over to tie my shoes in the morning, I started to feel the cracking and aching and stiffness in the knees. And we've talked about this in the past before, I think. And at the same time, I had a younger son, and my labs had actually shown positive on my metabolic reaction to gluten. And I didn't believe it because I didn't have any, oh, I feel gassy, bloaty. I feel a headache, or when I eat gluten, I feel bad. I don't feel it bad at all. But the lab showed something.
Yeah.
And then with my son, it was like, all right, 90 days. What we tell our patients, 100 days, 100%, just cross the line of 100 days, 100%. And I was in the 80s of those days, bent down, tie my shoes. And I'm like, son of a gun. It's not age. It's not I'm 40 and I sound like my dad. And it's, at least in part, it is metabolically related to my joint response to this food that's going on.
Yeah.
And of course, then it's like, well, what? But I'm also walking and riding and doing a workout here and there. And I say, yeah, of course, that's a part of it. Those are little micro traumas. They're also micro building, right? If you're
Okay.
building your muscles and that metabolic response of building and lubricating,
Well, if
like
you're
you said.
yeah, so tearing down and recovery, and we know
Yes,
that from a muscle, but obviously when you got chronic stuff like that, it's not recovering.
that's right. So in the past, rather than, and maybe I don't think we've hammered this one home, but I really like it. And I don't know that I've read anybody else saying this, but it's, I like to sort of trick patients, and I would ask them, and I'll ask you, is inflammation good or bad?
Well, I mean, from a natural, if I frog you right there, it's going to swell up. It's supposed to, so that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
It's do it what it's supposed to do to protect, right?
It's always a good thing. Your body is responding.
But if it doesn't go down and the body's not able to do what it's supposed, because that's what I was thinking of, with musculoskeletal thing. I mean, obviously, if you blow out a knee or tear your ACL, and it's something that, I mean, you broke, ripped, tore, mechanical that needs a surgery if you're going to get back, I guess. Okay, so let's put that. But over here, if you get a bad, well, we just had a friend who fell, and what she hurt, her hip or something, or
yeah,
so she didn't break anything. It's just a trauma.
Yeah.
Her body, and she is healthy and well, it should do what it's supposed to do. It's going to inflame. It's going to go to war on that thing, building back. And hopefully, well, in a perfect setting, she would, in however long, I don't know, weeks, a month, whatever, she'll be
a
over
chunk of time, would get back to, in a perfect setting, 100%.
Yeah.
And I would argue, so let's stick with that. Inflammation is good. And even I'd go a step further. Inflammation is the healing response. Okay. It's the biochemical healing.
Then why do we ice?
Pain, swelling.
Just for pain.
Just for comfort. Right? Does icing, well, okay. Can there be situations where it's too hot, too inflamed? And in medical school, like on day one, it's the rubor, calor, something Latin words about inflammation is too hot, too red, too swollen, too painful, and so an allopathic approach covers that up a little bit and says, we don't want you to suffer in pain medicine. Like ibuprofen, there's strong evidence, and I've used it many, many times. And I've told people, look, if you're there's nothing wrong with taking take the adult dose. Don't take, I'm just going to barely, nibble at it with a little kid dose.
Yeah.
Take the big dose, let it do its work. But ibuprofen does prolong this healing response that I'm talking about.
Because I've wondered about that. I mean, you get a fever, so something's in my body, it's going to war after it. It creates a fever.
Right. It's been a debate forever. Do we lower the fever to just feel better?
Yeah.
I would argue yes. And here's why.
All right.
Because of two main things. You will sleep better.
Well, okay.
And you will have a better mindset.
Yeah.
You will eat a little bit better. You'll feel better in order to then drink your water.
So even in theory, if the fever's going on to, because your body's working on whatever, and you say, I'm going to let the fever do what it's supposed to do. Go. But if I can't sleep, if I'm stressed and anxiety, that's not good either. So
that's right.
If the medicine helps that, okay. Coming back over here to musculoskeletal, though, I mean, if it's going on, we could surmise that we're doing something. What's going in the body doesn't need. What's not going in the body that it does need.
But keep that thought going. And inflammation got triggered.
Yeah.
Musculoskeletal. What are you eating? How are you exercising? Are you exercising too much? How are you sleeping?
Right.
And it's lack of resolution.
Okay.
That's the key. Resolution. The biochemical complexity of resolution is the key.
I won't get it out, but we haven't talked about this. I'm wearing this Whoop thing, which is that's what it's looking at is recovery, stress and recovery, and it goes along there, and it's pretty interesting how it goes along and says, hey, you did this. Here's your strain for the day, and then here's your recovery, and then it's going to come out the next day. Looking at heart rate variability, resting heart rate, and of course your sleep quality and everything, and then give you a score. The other day I was at a 98% recovery. I was like, go nuts. Today I'm at my lowest ever. I'm not totally, I assume, coming off the weekend and foods that I don't normally eat. It was a carbohydrate fest because another birthday as well. And I did more carbs and sporadic eating and whatnot. And so it's got me at a low recovery rate.
Have you come, because your other watch does it too?
Yeah. I just don't understand it as well. I
think it's the body battery thing.
I don't know. I need to show it. I need to show you. But again, looking at that and understanding our body. If I went on day after day after day after day and it was saying, man, you're not recovered, that's what I've been interested in, to look at, am I recovering? Am I enabling my body to recover? What did you say?
Resolve. Yeah. Resolution. And I love the word, and I want people, so inflammation and resolution, because like we always tell people, True Life Medicine, I don't want to be there to give you really awesome Motrin for your headache. I want you to be so resolute that the headache happens when it should, and then it resolves.
Yeah.
The resolution.
What I'm thinking is you're saying that resilience as well. Another similar. Am I
resilient? Is the similar, the words, recovery, restore, recuperate, recreate. All of these words are about resolve.
Yeah. The acute thing that I'm thinking of is in cycling. Now I never did the Tour de France. I was headed that way. Didn't go there, but
it's all about recovery.
Stage races. That is all about recovery. And I had guys back then say, okay, if you're doing performance enhancing drugs, it doesn't make you Superman necessarily on a given day. You don't take that and it actually makes you stronger. He says it's mainly for recovery.
Right.
So on one day, if I'm competing against guys who are doped up on a single day race, they don't have a big advantage. But if we're going to do that day in and day out, like the Tour, 21 days of marathons in essence, that's when the drugs come into effect. And of course, we all know the story of, Lance Armstrong and yada, yada. But they would help you recover, resolve, be resilient for the next day. It would help you do that more. Now, outside of that,
there's now, so you're a cyclist. So FTP means what?
I don't remember.
Some force to threshold power.
Okay.
There's, and VO2 max.
Yeah.
So we've got these markers of performance potentiality.
All right. Can I brag? I'm showing you a picture. Sorry for those of you listening to the audio. This is my VO2 max. 49.
When you started.
Look, read that. Your VO2 max is the top 5% of your
fitness age.
Your fitness age is 20. Yeah, man.
But that's all wrapped up in marketing.
Well,
you're going to buy more if you think.
Yes, I am.
We're going to tell people.
Well, according to the Garmin Connect app, it's showcasing that. Yeah, but again, looking at those measurements, I love those.
But because I'll show you mine, and I know you can do a lot more than me, but our grade will be, I'm at 42. If you're at 40, you were at 43 and trained up to 49.
I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand it quite either. And I don't trust the accuracy of it. But for the guys spending millions of dollars doing it, there is a marker that, because you're ebbing and flowing, that's the train too much or train too high. Like, where's your peak kind of a place? And I think it's the FTP that they know. And nearly in the 90th percentile, you can predict whoever the winner of the race by whose FTP on day one,
Wow.
meaning recovery, and their molecules, drugs notwithstanding, is going to be in the top part of the race. And of course, then unless they make a mistake with as they're chasing or trailing or doing the team stuff,
A tactical mistake.
Tactical
But even on
mistake.
these, even if you're talking about the accuracy, I'm looking at it and whether that's correct, I am expecting that these things doing biomarker measurements are going to be, at least I can look at my own consistency and go, am I
Yes,
trending
compare
up? Am
yourself
I
to
trending
self.
down? Whether or not the number itself is completely accurate in that moment.
Compared to true. Yeah.
Yeah. So recovery, resilience, resolution. So we're looking again at musculoskeletal. I mean, I want to look also at, so we had a bunch of people that also, I don't know why I pulled it out actually. It's because but a lot of people just talk about their back.
I was just going to say, let's talk about, because most of our listeners aren't going to be racing in the Tour de France or even racing with any kind of competitiveness or looking at their VO2 max or things like that. They're just going to be saying my neck hurts.
But they're by proxy of listening to this, we could assume that they're more active people. So they're going on, whether it's a daily walk,
That's
run,
what I mean.
whether,
Yeah.
Whether they do Spartan races or 5Ks, whether they garden and they're just, up and down. I'm so, like you're talking about, I think about that. Like, gosh, I'm down on the floor playing a game. Does it hurt when I stand up? Does I have to take a few steps to get the knees,
right. As we watch our little kids
jump,
sit in weird positions for an hour
and then
pop right up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So to look at that, those chronic things. I do want to, and I don't want to usurp where you're going, but talk about the back thing that I experienced in regards to inflammation.
Yes.
As we talk about chiropractic, which, I'm a lifetime chiropractic patient because of Rex. It started when I had a bad knee injury. I was in a cast for way too long and, back issues and whatever. And it was always the adjustment and whatnot. And then it was, gosh, I don't know now, 3 years ago or so, where I was having these bouts where I literally standing, maybe at the kitchen sink or whatever. And all of a sudden it feels like my back is dissolving. I can feel it disintegrating. And then boom, there's that nerve pinch. And it's that I can't take a deep breath. I can't move. I'm on the floor. And I thought, this is not okay. I'm 40, whatever I was, 48 at the time. And I'm going to have these periods of being absolutely immobile. It happened one time years before that when I was home alone with an infant. And I think
your back locked up.
And my back just gave out. So how many people are used to, the whatever given out? And as you know, then it was looking at that, and it was through talking. It was with you talking with our nutritionist. It was a discussion with her that she didn't come up with it, but something finally triggered.
Nightshade plants.
Oh my gosh. I am eating in my whole food, clean diet. I am abusing multiple meals. I have a jar of banana peppers. I may have jalapeno peppers. I'm putting cayenne pepper. I was just going, that was, the kids knew, daddy can eat hot coals kind of thing, of hot stuff, hot peppers and whatever and deal with that. So I was doing that. It's a nightshade. Yeah. And, and as well doing, probably, I don't think a lot, but potatoes and tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you do spicy stuff and it's usually, tomatoes are going to often be in there. Now, eggplant's another one. I wasn't doing that. So I looked at that. And I'm having them with almost every meal. I'd say during the day, twice a day, I'm having a decent amount. I stopped that and I have not had an issue that bad since then. Now, I've had a couple of times where I think I've eaten some volatile stuff for me, caused inflammation. So there's the magic sauce for me. We don't know how it is, but I eat this inflammatory food for me, more so for me, maybe that I'm less tolerant with. It comes in, causes inflammation in a certain spot that according to, or in conjunction with probably old injuries that are unique to me, it just hits the right spot and it pushes, things around and boom, I have nerve impingement or whatever because of this. And it got me to thinking, how many people are coming into chiropractors? Again, I'm a fan. We have one here in the office, are coming in to get these musculoskeletal adjustments that are being caused by inflammation, that are being caused by
something else,
something that they're putting in their mouth. And, as you talk about, you can cause inflammation by your anxiety response to your bad marriage
mental state,
or whatever, or bad job or whatever. But what's causing inflammation? How many musculoskeletal things do we have caused by that? And now over here, then, and then how can you recover if you're continuing to put that
This is exactly why I sort of turned up my nose at musculoskeletal, because of the bothness.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard for people because of limited resources and time. Like if you're at the front side and you don't have me in your back pocket as a friend, where are you going to spend your money? On the chiropractor or on the metabolic side?
I don't know how I would have ever figured it out personally.
And
Which is
that's what I mean, is it's really, really tough. And most chiropractors will talk about the importance of nutrition and the inflammatory response, the metabolic situation going on. Many of them do have their own nutritionists and things like that. Most medical doctors aren't going to say a word about chiropractic and nutrition. So in the general run-of-the-mill chronic kind of situation, in your case, I would have said just rolling the dice. You would have been better off to go down the chiropractic route than the other. But you had been and still hadn't
I
figured it
had
out.
been
And
some
that's
in one of my first and before, it was probably a year or more before the nightshade issue. One of the kids made this homemade kind of candy thing. I'm in the kitchen, literally, and ate a couple of these bites of sugar bombs. And moments later, I don't know, maybe it was 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I don't remember. But later, I had that disintegrating feeling. And the thing that tipped it off too about about the focus on a musculoskeletal thing is how back when I had literal musculoskeletal injuries,
right.
they would take a long time and a bunch of adjustments to get better.
Right.
And now, but these issues that I was having, I mean, I'm obliterated on the floor, can't move. And 2 days later, I can be lifting weights again. I mean, that does not make sense from
Right.
musculoskeletal. But if you think about something's inflamed and pushing it out, and then the inflammation goes down, man, it's right back in. It's not
Right.
this big,
Right.
blunt trauma injury to that degree. But I had sugar, so I started researching that and found this article on sugar and inflammation and back, whatever. Showed it to my chiropractor at the time, which is one here in town that you know, and he said, "Man, it totally makes sense. I've never seen that."
Huh.
I mean, this is not. And I wonder again, just like you in medical school, how much functional medicine training or nutrition preventative training did you have? A day?
Yeah.
A day. Even chiropractic, I mean, they are more into nutrition, but of looking at how often does that pain, is it caused by an inflammatory response to whatever, food, stress,
Right.
whatever, that no amount of adjustment is really going to correct.
Right.
And so you're going to have your patient coming back forever.
Well,
Good for
right.
business.
Good for business. Very frustrating for people. And for our listeners who are on the front side of that, who are saying, okay, yeah, but what about me? What, where do I go? And that's the frustrating. Yes, this is the nature of the problem, is because I would say on the flip side of it, if we approached all humans, like one, Wolf is the paleocardiologist or the cardiology paleo guy. He's a cardiologist, and through his wife is a chiropractor, and he won't see anybody who isn't also seeing a chiropractor. So he feels so strongly to say, okay, look, like I would say, most of us, all of us, nobody eats perfectly. And he would say, by the same token, nobody has perfect alignment.
Okay.
That we all are tweaked, that we all should get an adjustment once per whatever chunk of time. I wouldn't argue that. I would argue, provided your nutrition, your mattress, your chair, your ergonomics is all in the right spot, I think you can, and barring injury.
You know what bothers me? We measured my Ian and Canyon, two of my boys, the other day. They're both over 6 foot. I mean, we literally put them against the wall and measured them. Who at the age of 16, my license and ever since it has said 6 foot, I am 6'10" and a half.
6'10", are you?
Yeah, 6'10" and a half.
Are you sure? You're 6'10".
Oh, 5'10". Whoops. That would be impressive. Everybody was about to hear. And so I'll tell you how to do it, guys. There's a supplement we're selling and you will grow vertically. 5'10" and a half. I have shrunk
You
an
shrunk.
inch and a half. I'm irritated.
And in all honesty, you probably have.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had the lipoma influence, you had the biking influence, you had the.
So where
trauma.
talking about alignment, where is my, back and structure, and what have I compressed with?
Your feet, in terms of wearing shoes and losing that arch, and it's
but now I'm back to, the minimalist running.
I know, but do you need another 5 years of minimalist running to
know.
spring your foot back up?
I need traction to yank me back out. I did have a guy one time. He said he'd been using one of the inversion boards.
Yeah.
And he gained back some of his.
Oh, really?
Lessening
I'd like to see a randomized controlled trial.
Yeah,
On that.
I don't know.
We got one
Yeah,
off of Craigslist or whatever else. And, is it worth 5 minutes a day to hang upside down, whatever? It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's like, I like the feeling of hanging, this way from a bar, but to hang upside down, it just.
Yeah, I got the boots and I was hanging upside down on our pull-up bar. And it's horrendous.
Yeah, that's even worse.
That's really, really bad. All right. So, again, on this musculoskeletal aspect though, I mean, is it fair to, well, no, you said, so what do you do? I mean, my first thought is if you're listening to this and you have chronic, musculoskeletal, knee pain, hip pain, ankle joint, back, neck. I mean, there's just all
knees, hips, shoulders are the big ones.
Yeah.
Neck, mid back, low back.
Yeah.
All of those. Then probably fingers, osteoarthritis.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
And rheumatoid arthritis would be a different thing. Gout would be a different thing. So there would be other more now those are highly metabolic, right? Yeah. Those are not trauma related, but everybody out there, the most people are going to be in the osteoarthritis camp. Okay. Typical, what older folks would call rheumatism, and the weather changes and the pressure changes and my joint acts up and this kind of thing. And if you've got fat, the distal joint on your finger is really thickened. These are osteoarthritis. So what the doctor would call, and I think is on your, oh wait, didn't I just write you an email about, did you read your MRI?
Yeah. I didn't.
It says DJD, degenerative joint disease.
What is that?
What we're talking about, osteoarthritis. When you did the lipoma thing and it said, and that's what the radiologist.
So up here, my upper back, spine.
Your spine has evidence of, and I think it said moderate. It just kind of surprised me because we sure would have liked it to say your spine looks like a 20-year-old. And instead it said your spine looks like a typical American 50-year-old with moderate DJD, which is kind of the radiologist speak for osteoarthritis, degenerative joint disease. We don't use that term anymore.
So what do I do?
All this, right? I mean, it's kind of like, well, okay, pay attention. Don't crank up on a bike for 5 hours a day.
I'll share that real quick. So I had an MRI. So I had, and they think from past injuries, I had some, blunt trauma to shoulder injuries and stuff had developed over time. And we're talking over 30 years or more, a lipoma. So a fatty scar, whatever deposit.
Tumor.
On my back. Yeah. On my back, right to the left of my spine, that had gotten big enough that, daddy has this lump on his back. I mean, you could see it. And so I went in, had it looked at, and the general surgeon, he says, yeah, it's well past the size that we would generally want to remove something like that. And it could, and lots of things could happen. It could become cancerous. It could cause this. I really got interested in it when our chiropractor, our in-house guy here, looked at it. He says, man, I'm just concerned that it is causing, you've got this foreign object in essence in there.
Straight and it's
that it was pulling. He thought he might be pulling on a shoulder and causing stress and whatever. And I've had a dull ache that kind of ebbs and flows forever. I mean, as long as I can remember, so long that I didn't think about it. Got it taken out. So they went in there and took out this hamburger patty. It wasn't quite that big, but almost size of this pink, fatty, scarry stuff, took it out. And since then, now it's been, I don't know how many months now, I've realized over time that I don't have that common ache. I was used to that ache over here. How cool is that?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're saying my MRI says.
So in getting ready for that, the surgeon wanted the MRI to see how deep it went.
Yeah.
Pre-surgery.
Yeah.
And it was a very short report. Right. And it winds up in my box and you don't see that. And I didn't see it because I didn't even order it.
Why would they not tell me that?
Because it's like saying, Kevin, you got a right arm. It's so common in America that like, well, it's like telling a 50-year-old, you've got some love handles. It's
just normally abnormal. It doesn't stand out.
Right.
Great.
And it, had it been like severe, had you looked like an 80-year-old, then I think somebody would have said, man, you need to go to your doctor and talk to them.
But it's a disappointing. It's like the average narrow lab panel that people say, my lab, I feel like crap. I feel like I'm going to die, but they say my labs are great.
That's right.
Yeah. The
labs not sick enough to be in the ER.
Yeah. The labs that say you're not going to die today.
That's right.
As opposed to your labs where you're going to go out here and go, man, I'm seeing you're not acutely going to die today, but these
That's
things
right.
are going to manifest
What I would call
somewhere.
all the yellow flags, like, that you're probably not feeling this right now, like an elevated CRP of 3.5. But gosh, it shouldn't be that high. Like, and I would look at you and say, oh, gosh, that's just surprising that your joints. Now, here's the problem. They could have been that way 20 years ago. And you have lived such a healthy lifestyle for the past 20 years that instead of going down even more, you actually went up from really bad to less bad.
Yeah.
So points on a curve over time we don't have.
Oh, I want to point that out though, because I love that, because we've had people say, here's Joe Healthy over here who's got all these problems, so what's the point? I might as well just, pig out and live at McDonald's. We're going, no. So Joe over here who's eating healthy and still has issues. How much worse could they be if he wasn't doing that?
That's right.
So, and that's what I think. I mean, the living like this, I wonder someday, am I going to get humbled and get the cancer diagnosis? I can't.
Yes, you are.
Well, I hope not. Get a cancer.
You're going to die. Let's just say
I'm going to die. But the cancer, but I could. I mean, we could do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I would attest to what you just said. Thank goodness I've been living it as I have, so I did not get it 20 years ago.
Yes.
How much can I stave it off or minimize it if I can't fully eradicate it?
And this is a very difficult conversation with patients when they'll come in and say, gosh, I spent all this money and time with you, but I still have XYZ. I agree.
Yeah.
And I will try to, word things in such a way as to say, okay, let's remember where you were. Do you remember this frustration and that frustration? Oh yeah, no. When those frustrations are gone, like your shoulder, you did not walk in a month later and tell me, hey, Randy, I don't have that dull ache anymore. Mm-hmm. And you weren't telling me every day when you had the dull ache either. It was part of life. But when that pain goes away, you didn't wake up and say, oh, now I'm going to do 20 push-ups a day. You just went back to life. How much more? And when you talk to people and for people out there, when their resilience level of their back or their knees or whatever are less, and they feel like, gosh, but I'm doing this, I'm trying this exercise and that exercise. And if you ask, because trauma is going to happen, the stress is going to happen. And I'll ask people, do you feel like you went through the 2020 year with a little bit better attitude now that you've been meditating? And they'll say, oh my gosh, yeah. If XYZ had happened to me a year or two ago, it would have wrecked me. Yeah. And I got way less wrecked. Yeah. I'm like, well, that's nobody wants to buy that book, Way Less Wrecked. And everybody wants to buy Younger, Smarter, Better, Faster. You're 20 years old. But the reality is the work that you're putting into it is helping you to not be as bad as you would have been.
Yeah.
And okay, we just have to kind of take that.
Well, and in looking at that, to hit on, treatments, what are the things you can do? I mean, we've hit on some things. I mean, to look at, especially if we're looking at, upper back, to look at posture. You talk about
ergonomics,
ergonomics, posture. How are we? Well, you said alignment. How are we aligning ourselves, our bodies, every day from, on those areas?
And on the posture, for most people out there, I'd say, how are you mousing? Like that support of the elbow. Everybody mouses computers or whatever the verb is. And if your elbow isn't supported, you're holding your elbow up with your neck, with half of your neck for hours, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. If you're using a
keyboard,
a laptop, you have to crank your thumbs in.
Yeah.
So it's think about that. And people are like, oh yeah, but I've been doing that forever and never bothered me in the past. Remember, and it's my smoking example.
Smoking for 20 years, haven't had cancer yet. Yeah. So posture and alignment. I mean, obviously there's mobility, being mobile. Are you, like you said, are you not having the stress of being sedentary?
Yeah.
Are you moving that stuff just like the old car, that needs that? Are you stretching? Are you flexible? And we've got those, types of things. But you said something a minute ago, man, if I am dealing with chronic, if people listen to chronic stuff, one of the first places I'd go is the elimination diet. Take away all those inflammatory stuff, or fast. And you've had people do that. I mean, how many people, if they did a 3-day fast, at the end of those 3 days go, holy smokes, that would be the most, if you are at the place, and this is where you're all, before not eating, you consult your doctor, because some of your bodies are so inefficient, so unresilient, that if you stop eating, your body is going to freak out. So you may need to,
for those folks, I'll do the elimination.
Okay.
And just last week, a guy and a new patient, and he came in for his wife who had a long list of issues. And the only reason he was even he was very skeptical and giving me the time of day was because his daughter or somebody had said, gosh, this whole gluten thing, I quit gluten, I feel better. And it's like, yeah, right, whatever. But he tried it. And he was a little bit of a braggadocio at 55, and I ski and I do this and I do that. And he was like, holy cow. He just kept going on about, I could not believe that these aches and pains that I blamed on being active lifestyle were gone.
Yeah.
And so that was the spearhead for him to say something else is going on here. And so for people out there, if they're like, okay, I'm a newbie, I don't even know where to begin. Obviously, yes, you got to think about your posture, and people don't think about it, but think about your posture during sleep. This is 8 hours plus, or 7 to, how is your spine at night? And in terms of mattress, in terms of pillow, in terms of those kinds of things, just, think about that.
Let me ask that one though, because there are no end to the beds and
the bed wars.
Pillow. Well, no. But the bed, this type of bed, this type of pillow. I seen one recently. There's a new ad for something, and this lady, she takes like a bowling ball and drops it on a glass ball on the pillow thing or whatever.
Glass of wine.
But I'm thinking, in the same way that we talked about minimalistic shoes, when did we get to the point of going, you know what, God messed up on our feet, we need to support these with these fancy shoes and all that stuff. And people were barefoot.
Space technology,
mattresses. Where did we get to where we weren't able to lay down in the woods with nothing as a pillow or a rock or whatever they did for eons of time, and get to where we are now and go, oh my gosh, this is like an egg in a carton. It has to be perfectly. I mean, it doesn't make sense in the same way as the shoes. We were barefoot and fine forever. And then we came along, and now the fancier the shoes, we got more foot problems.
Yep.
And if anybody wants to read that, the Born to Run book is what we cut our teeth on. And now we run in 0 drop, and I still run in the pretty minimalist stuff. But anyways, I have wondered about that with all the bed stuff.
Me too. And we were also spent 3 years in Japan, where it is decidedly different. The mattresses, when you go to a hotel and things like that, very firm, very thin. It's kind of like a piece of wood with a really thick pallet.
Yeah.
And then a rice pillow. And I actually like it. Maybe it was just the idea of newness and travel and whatever else, but I thought I liked it. And, but you will find nothing unless you do it yourself and make a pallet. Remember when you were a little kid and your mom would make you a pallet? I don't know. I have actually never thought about that.
I went for years traveling, and it was, sleeping bag on a floor and whatever. And sometimes I felt like, man, I slept better at that point. Now, again, you get used to it or not. And now if I'm going to sleep when we go camping, I sleep terrible because I'm used to the comfy and the whatever. But
just like with the shoes, people who have shoes and go backwards, be very careful about that, by the way.
Oh my! Well, we did that. So on that, the minimalist shoe thing, we read this book, Born to Run. Great read, interesting story. But talking about that, let's get back to strengthen your feet, and we did that, and both injured our feet because we did it too fast.
And the same thing with fasting. If you do it too fast, you're going to injure your metabolism and feel bad. But
so if you can't.
Everybody should do an elimination diet.
If you've got chronic pain, that's the first thing that I would do. So if you can type in elimination diet and find that.
Let's just say,
the top culprits:
gluten, dairy, corn, and soy.
Okay.
So then the next group would be nightshade plant family.
Yeah.
Egg, coffee, alcohol.
Yeah.
Sugar.
And I've been limiting coffee a week at this point. For a while, but this coming back to my score that has me at today, I'm at the worst recovery. Yeah. The past 3 days, probably more gluten than I've had in the past 3 months before then. That's what he wanted for his birthday. He wanted pasta, not the gluten-free, Dad. I want the real thing, bread, and dip it in whatever
ranch sauce.
Yeah. Dairy. Yeah. So then it was dairy and ice cream. And I just said, okay, it's your birthday. And that's when you would say so righteously go imbibe and suffer for it, but then now stop it
and recognize it and talk about it. And the most dangerous thing is the fact that our bodies are so incredibly wonderfully made and resilient that most people would say, oh, I do that all the time. I don't feel bad.
Yeah.
And you don't until you do.
And try not doing it and see if you say, I didn't know I could feel that good. Like your guy that you're talking about. Yeah. And that's,
I was going to say, with your experiment, I've been doing the experiment also of no wine, just trying to eat less carb, because I feel like I eat too much at a sitting and go 100% no dairy. And we were fine until we had Copper Mountain birthday weekend, just like you did. And son of a gun, if I didn't have a really good sleep score last night.
Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure.
Well, and again, it's not, that's the, if we look at the day-to-day results, it's going to be hard. But if we look at it over
Pattern,
time,
yeah.
like you talk about, if you're going to take a supplement, a nutritional supplement, get a benefit from it, 90 days.
Yeah. And
This
even
isn't-
then, most of the supplements that we use, you're not taking it so you get to feel something.
Yeah.
Think about your fish oil supplement like you think about your broccoli.
Yeah.
Nobody is trying to do extra broccoli so that their elbow feels better or so that they get a VO2 max or a better score or what. It's healthier than the other. And we know that. So be smart about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that did some justice to talking through. I did not, again, intend to do the whole show on that, but man, there's just so much there. And this is like every other malady we see. This is one that is more and more and more. Now we have normalized that to where when you hit 50, you are supposed to be doing less. I used to do those things. I used to ski.
And
I
all your
used
friends will say that. Me too.
Me too. Yeah. And I want to be the guy out there. Like I saw this weekend, as I'm sure you did, some 90-year-old person just swishing down with a smile on their face. And I want to be that guy, not grandpa in the corner, as
Yeah.
you say.